natural grass seed, even though I don't believe much of it germinated. It was what we call a native grass mixture that was already growing in the lawn. We used the composted food waste fertilizer, again, very sustainable, literally from plate to plant and back to plate again. Yeah. Because it's also a vegetable fertilizer as well. And then we used a battery-powered roller mower as well. So we created this pretty nice lawn in 9 weeks without the greatest of help from the weather. Yeah. And the idea was to show sustainability. You know, we've got an enormous influence, sadly, in lawn care that comes from sports turf. Yeah. And of course, if you don't know, you just assume that it must be right. Because we look at Wembley, we look at all these fantastic football pitches and go, wow, I'd love that. And you think, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. It's not sustainable. It's terribly unsustainable. It's full of plastic. It takes an enormous amount of water to look after, and it only ever lasts 7 months, and then they put a new one down whether it needs it or not.
They rip it out, don't they?
They rip them out. So but of course the area is obviously very much the same. So when people sell grass, they sell lots of different varieties. They sell fertilizers. They sell lots of different varieties. But of course, we do listen to supposed experts. And as much as, you know, the guy at Wembley will be an expert in what he does, it's not what we need and want in our back gardens. You know, we could not stitch plastic into our gardens like that. We could not mow it 5 times a week, 7 times a week. Yeah. We could not use tons and tons and tons of water and fertilizer. We can't do it. We wouldn't want to do it, and we certainly shouldn't be doing it either. So yeah, my sort of I suppose bone of contention has been trying to educate people in that there is a proper way. You can go into the middle of Dartmoor and find a beautiful piece of grass, and the only thing maintaining it is a cow or a sheep or a horse. Now that speaks volumes. You know, if it's that easy, why do we make it that difficult? Well, because of bad advice. That's the truth. So that's where my association came in. That was a platform for me to sort of launch advice, proper advice from a proper lawn consultant expert, if you like. There's thousands of people that call themselves lawn experts. I personally don't believe they are.
I was going to say, do you have to be qualified in any way, or is it just sort of you just define yourself as that and then?
Yeah, you call yourself what you like. I mean, to a point, I call myself the UK's lawn expert, and I was named that by the press a number of years ago when I launched my book, and I thought, well, I'll use that because actually I think that's quite true. I don't think there is anybody better than me by a country mile. And it's not being modest; it's just being honest.
For sure.
So yes, there's lots of ideas about how to do it, how you should do it, how you shouldn't do it. In fact, we're doing I think we're in a couple of weeks' time, we're doing a Channel 5 documentary on lawns.
Okay.
It's quite exciting when you're a lawn person, believe me.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's great.
It rarely gets spoken about in Gardener's World or anything like that. So and I think it was actually based on my Sunday Times article where, you know, the sustainability factor is there for a long time. It's just haven't had anybody telling people how to do it.
Yeah. So it's interesting you kind of talk about the sustainability stuff. Because I guess, I mean, I've been reading about sort of the wild meadowing type arguments and things. And I guess the main argument against lawns from that perspective is that you can make them you can like create them sustainably, but that ultimately they're kind of monocultural, they don't support bees or insects in quite the same way. I mean, like, do you recognise that, and are there things that you do that are different, or do you feel that's like an unfair kind of accusation?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one because, you know, we had the No Mow May, which I'm sure you've probably read about, and I sort of, I think anything about rewilding is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I've totally agreed with Monty on many of his points, apart from the fact that, you know, to a point he looks at it from his objecting this, which he hates lawns anyway. So
quite.
when I look at No Mow May, I've said to people, and I haven't really said it much because people look at me in a bit of an annoying way. Gardening itself isn't green, believe me, and I'll explain a bit of that in a moment. But so when we talk about rewilding or No Mow May, I kind of go, well, what about no weeding May then? Do we do that in our flower beds? And if not, why not? What's the difference? Tell me the difference. I don't understand the difference. You can't just have the RHS or anybody going, let lawns go wild, or Monty saying it. Let lawns go wild. Well, what's the difference between lawns then and a garden?
Yeah.
Because I don't personally see that much difference. If you look at water consumption on areas, gardens and lawns don't take much at all. Most people don't irrigate them. People might say that, yes, to water a 250 square metre lawn that uses X amount of water, but not many people actually do. But everybody waters plants. Yeah. Everybody. And that includes the big chain from plastic pots to seedlings to turning them into plants, driving them to through fossil fuel lorries, etc., etc., etc. I could go on and on, and then times it by 10 billion plastic plant pots. So gardening isn't that green, and we tend to get the criticism saying, well, we should let our lawns go wild. Well, I think in modern day, when you can have sustainable lawns, you've got to look at, and in fact, when you look at a garden as a whole, yes, the lawn takes up a big part, and that annoys, I think, a lot of gardeners, and believe me, it does annoy them. Because they could sell a lot of plants in to cover that area that wasn't covered in grass. But we have to also think about lawns. If we can maintain them sustainably, they affect the price of our house. No disrespect, but, you get to October, your rewilded lawn will look like a pile of poo, which, if you're trying to sell your house within that period, probably wouldn't work too well. They'd probably end up having to returf a lawn. So then you look at the actual environmental factors that lawns actually do good for. And to a point, we've got sort of two different ecosystems in our gardens. The lawn, it absorbs carbon dioxide 365 days of the year. It releases oxygen 365 days of the year. Far more than plants are ever doing, I can assure you. Far, far more, partly in terms of the size of the garden as well. It filtrates our water better than plants. It does the contaminants, dust particles, etc. Filters all these different things